Erev Tov B'Tay. It says in Masechet Ta'anit, Mish Nichnas Av B'Matin B'Simcha. What does that mean? That when Chodesh Av comes in, which is coming in on Shabbat, but Shabbat is we don't do Avelut on Shabbat as we said, but after Shabbat, Sunday, Mimatin B'Simcha. So what does that mean? We reduce the Simcha. We don't do Simachot. So what does that mean? We don't make parties, That's the thing, right? Simachot. Don't make parties. So what does that mean? The Magen Avraham says like this, he's very machmir. He says, even a seudah you shouldn't make without music, without dancing. Even that you shouldn't do. That's what he says. So what does that mean? That if a person has a birthday, right, on this time, according to Magen Avraham, he shouldn't make a seudah for the birthday. He shouldn't do it. Right? That's even without music. But the truth is, that there is what to rely on to make a seudah without music. But the thing is, also, you have a problem with the basar. Right? You can't eat basar on the 9 days. So you're going to have a dairy meal, right? To bring some pizza, I don't know, whatever, right? Something like that. You're not going to be able to bring the barbecue and all that good stuff, right? For your birthday party. So the truth is, the best thing to do, honestly, if you have a birthday at this time, wait until after Tisha B'Av, and then do it. Do a delayed party. Take a rain check. Right? That's the best thing to do. Why make a party on the 9 days for your birthday? It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to have people to enjoy it anyway. So what's the point of it? There's no point in it. So we reduce the simcha. Now the question is like this, right? What about the simcha, which is in your heart, right? To be sameach in your heart. You're supposed to also reduce that as well, or you're supposed to be sad, right? Or you're supposed to be inside happy. What should it be, right? That's the question, So the truth is, that it says, Yivdu Hashem b'simcha, bo lefanav birnana, right? That's what it says. Pasuk in Tehillim, right? So what does that mean? You should serve Hashem with simcha. That's what it says, So it's not good, the Mekubalim, the Arizal, they talk about this. That when a person is sad, he cannot do Avodat Hashem very well. It gets really, really, bad. And it kills the Avodah. And it kills the success in your learning Torah and all these things, So therefore the truth is, during the 9 days, inside your heart, you shouldn't be sad. It's not a good idea. Because it's going to affect your the way you do things in life, the way you're not going to succeed so much. There's no reason to be sad inside. Only on Tisha B'Av. That's something else, right? We're not talking about that. Tisha B'Av, you're supposed to be sad, right? You're supposed to be crying on Tisha B'Av. As I tell people always, I had, with my rabbi, Maran Rabbi Ovadia, I was with him for 15 years, and I always saw there was 2 days out of the year that he cried. Which day was that? Right, Tisha B'Av, when he said Kinot, right? He always cried. Right? Always. Some people, they don't have they're not emotionally so in tune, to cry, on Tisha B'Av. They're too cold. They can't do it. You understand? So, there is a chidah. He says about this, that a person who can't cry, on a sad occasion like Tisha B'Av, something is wrong with his neshama. He needs to fix his neshama a little bit, Something is not right there. Why? Because how is it that you can't cry? You don't feel nothing? Tisha B'Av, the Churban Habayit, you don't know what that is. You don't know what that means to Am Yisrael. Okay, maybe a person doesn't know. That's something else, right? But if he does know, he learned, about these things. He learned in the Talmud, all these things. So you should be able to cry. So Maran, every Tisha B'Av, he always cried. Never fails, right? That's number one. Number two, also on Yom Kippur, he cried. Yom Kippur. Day of Atonement, right? It's a heavy duty, it's a heavy day. So when he cried? Not when he's praying. No. He dafka cried, when? When he was reading the Haftarah. Right? We read the Haftarah, Sefer Yonah, right? On Yom Kippur. So when he read he read it. He read the Haftarah. Always, he went up to read the Haftarah, the Maftir. So when he was reading the story of Yonah, it moved him so much, that he used to cry. when he read this. It was always like that. So anyway, right, getting back to what we're saying, on Tisha B'Av, you're really supposed to cry. That's the whole point, right? Especially when you say kinot, right, there should be some, emotional thing there going on. If you're not on the level, okay, Hashem is Hashem. When you get older, you'll get on the level, to understand what we lost in the Beit HaMikdash, how big the loss was. Okay, whatever it is, it's all good, right? So, on Tisha B'Av, that's one thing, but the rest of the 9 days, what should you go? Go everywhere, be crying everywhere, you go to work, you're crying. You come home, you're crying, right? What, you go to shul, you're crying in the shul. Nobody said this. We don't go that far. That's not what it means. So therefore, if a person, right, is not crying all 9 days, there's no problem with that. Other Rabbi, he should be happy inside, because the simcha makes him serve Hashem better. They asked the Arizal, who was a very big Chacham, he achieved very high levels of Kabbalah and all kinds of things. And he only lived until the age of 39. He died very young. Can you imagine 39? What is this? He didn't even reach 40, Arizal. And he did so much in Torah. So much. It's incredible. So what they say, right? They asked him, the Arizal, how did you get to such a level? Ruchaniyut. Such a young man like you, how did you achieve that? Most people, when they're 39, they're still playing games, they're going to gamble in Atlantic City, in casinos, in Las Vegas, that's what they're doing when they're 39. This guy is already on the top of the world. The Arizal, they asked him, how did you do that? So what he said, right? Because I served Hashem with simcha always. I always served Hashem with simcha. So when you serve Hashem with simcha, you can reach very, very high levels in ruchaniyut, in spiritual. That's why if you see a person, right, look at people. Most people are very sad, they're depressed, dikaon. But the ones who are happy, they're more successful. Hashem, because of the simcha that they have in their heart, Hashem gives them a lot of good things in life. So simcha is a very, very important thing. Especially inside, right? I'm not talking about, there are some dopes, some stupid people. They heard about this Arizal. There was this one guy I saw in Yerushalayim, dopey guy, dope. So what is he doing? Listen to this, right? He thinks, he learns Kabbalah, but he's not on the level. He's Amaretz, right? So he's not on the level to learn Kabbalah. So he learned about this Arizal, he was always Basimcha. So what was he doing? Every time I would see him, walking here, going there, he was always going like this, da la 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 la, dancing, Likud, dancing. That's not what the Arizal meant, What do you think, the Arizal was going around singing and dancing all the time? That's not what it means. It means he was sameach inside. You understand? Yeah, Michigan. It's true. You're right. You're right. So that's what we're talking about, right? Inside there, don't be sad. Only on Tisha B'Av. That's it, right? Otherwise, no. Very good. So let's move on a little bit. We have a lot of things to talk about with the 9 days. So as we said, right, just to remind you, we said yesterday, you're not allowed to buy new clothing, right? Unless you have nothing to wear on the 9 days. No shoes, no suits, right? What about to sew a new beged, right? Today nobody does this anymore, In the old days, our grandmothers, they used to sew in the house, begadim, clothing, No, who does this now? Nobody. Right, but you go to any house now, right? They don't even have a sewing machine there, Nobody's sewing. It's a lost art. But anyway, right? If a person does sew, he's not allowed to sew a new beged, also on the 9 days. Same thing, But what you're allowed to do is to fix, like let's say your button fell out, right? Or it got ripped, the suit or the shirt, whatever it is, the pants, right? You're allowed to sew it up, and patch it or something like that, right? Put a patch on it, things like this. This you can do on the 9 days because it's not really simcha, just fixing a old beged, which got torn up or whatever. That's not simcha. What simcha is that, right? That's just living. You're living. You're barely making it. You're barely getting by. So that's allowed. We don't have a problem with that. Great. Another thing, right? We already mentioned is that you're not allowed to You're not allowed to make weddings, right? At this time, 9 days, no weddings. We already said no smachot, right? No parties, and also weddings. Of course, you're not allowed to do. Why? But we said, right, before Rosh Chodesh, you're allowed to do, right? Tonight it would be mutar, according to Sephardi custom, right? Don't get the wrong idea. According to Sephardi custom, it would be allowed, right, to make a wedding tonight. But after Rosh Chodesh, asur. Why after Rosh Chodesh, asur? What's the reason why? What's the difference? The difference is, it says in the Bet Yosef that it's not a good siman. You know what this means? Not a good siman? Siman means, in English, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. What does that mean, it's not a good sign? That means, they say, right, that the way you start something, anything in life, right, when you begin. Let's say you're starting a new business, right? Anything like that, right? You're starting something new in life. It depends. The whole thing goes according to the way you started. If you started good, it's going to be always good. It's a good siman. It's a good sign. So this is the reason we tell you, listen, don't get married on the 9 days. You know why? Because if you do, right, just like you started bad, so it's going to be always bad. You don't want that. So therefore we tell you, don't get married on the 9 days. It's not a good idea, right? Why would you want to do that? The truth is, if a person has no children, according to halakha, it's allowed to get married, on the 9 days, because he has no children. But the minhag is not like that. The minhag is, we tell him, don't do it. Just wait, wait a few days. What are you going to lose? If you wait a few days, what's going to be? Something's going to get destroyed. So therefore, right, 9 days, no weddings, right? That's for sure. No question about that. Okay, fantastic. So let's talk now about bathing, right? Taking a shower. For us, as Saradim, you're allowed to take a shower on the 9 days. Right? Hot shower, cold shower, whatever you want, right? Whatever makes you happy. All week, right? From Sunday to Friday, you're allowed to take a shower. Ashkenazim are machmir about this. What they do. Shabbat? Yeah, right. So they are even machmir for Kavod Shabbat, for Shabbat Chazon. They don't take a shower. Only just they wash their hands, feet, right, and face. That's it. But we take a shower all week. Hot shower, cold shower, soap, shampoo, conditioner, right? All the good things, everything you can do. Normal way.
All week take a shower, right?
Sure. So that's the way it is, for us. The Ashkenazim are stringent. So what they do, as we said, right, all week, they just do the hands, feet, and face. The problem is, Rav Moshe Feinstein, he wrote that in our times, in hot climates, in places where it's hot, how can you, not take a shower for 9 days? You're going to be smelling. Stink. Lo aleinu, Shem Yilachem, So in a hot climate, Rav Moshe Feinstein said, you know what, you could do it, even for Ashkenazim. When it's hot. So he writes there something very interesting, Rav Moshe Feinstein. You know what he says? That the truth is, let me explain to you something interesting, and after this we'll stop. We get to do Arvit. I'll explain to you something interesting. It says in the Mishnah in Masechet Brachot, right? The Rabban Gamliel, when he was Avel, what was he Avel for? His wife passed away, Lo Aleinu, right? His wife died. So when he was doing Avelut, he took a bath, He went into the bathhouse in Abano, took a nice bath. Oh. So he came out, and the Talmidim asked him, he says, Rabbeinu, what are you doing? You're taking a bath on the Avelut? So what he told him, right? He says, Istnisani. This means, he told him, I'm very sensitive, I can't take sweat, I can't deal with it. For me, it's like a disease, Today, we're all like that, we're very sensitive with sweat. We can't deal with that, right? Some of us taking a shower every day or every other day, whatever it is. In the old country, right, they used to bathe once a week. Am I right? Yeah. Once a week, right? But in America, if you bathe once a week, they're going to they're going to faint when they see you. You know what I mean? You can't do this in America once a week. You can't do that, right? Or every day or every other day. That's what you got to do in America, otherwise it's not culturally not accepted. Yeah, in Bukhara, yeah, that's it, yeah, exactly. So, that's what I tell you, right? So therefore, Rav Moshe Feinstein comes and says, if you're taking a shower just to remove the sweat, right? It's okay. Because only bathing for pleasure is not allowed. For pleasure. But this is not for pleasure. It's just to remove the sweat, you know? So Rav Moshe Feinstein allows this all week. You know, even for Ashkenazim. He allows it. So if you want to rely on that, you could. You know what I mean? It's a very good chokhmah here. What is he saying, Rav Moshe Feinstein? That only for pleasure it's forbidden to bathe, but not for cleanliness. You know? As they say, right? Cleanliness is next to godliness, right? So, no problem, you know? You're allowed to be clean. What's wrong with being clean? That's something wrong with it?
Nothing.
You should know, by the way, nothing. You should know, by the way, even on Tisha B'Av, right? If a person is dirty, he has dirt on his body, he's allowed to wash himself on Tisha B'Av. You know what I mean? He has dirt. He got something dirty. Some poskim even allow, let's say, you know, he took a long walk, right? And he got very sweaty, you know, he's all, you know, he's like all in sweat, you know, his whole body is sweat. So even some poskim even allow on Tisha B'Av to take a shower. Because it just, you know, he has to remove the sweat, otherwise he feels disgusting. Yeah, it stinks. Yeah, he can't live like that, you know what I understand? So that's the whole thing, you know. So even on Tisha B'Av, when we said, right, it says on Tisha B'Av like this, you're not allowed to put even your little pinky into the water. Even this you can't do. But that's only for pleasure. But if your pinky is dirty, right, you're allowed to put in the water and clean it, right? That's something else. Even with soap. So what's the halacha be'emet, right? So the halacha is we wash until here, you know, like Yom Kippur. Only until here. Only until here. Huh? What about the face? Good question, right? So as we said, right, if you have sweat on it, you know, a lot of sweat, that's something else. It could be, you know, but if you're doing it for pleasure, you know, to refresh yourself, this is not allowed. So in the morning, right, the rule is, if you're Easternese, if you're sensitive, they say, you know, you can put some water, you know, on your eyes, you know, on your face a little bit. But the Ashkenazim are a little bit more machmir about that. They're a little more machmir. Look at the Ramah. Anyway, the point is, right, that even on Tisha B'Av, a person can sometimes bathe. And also Yom Kippur, same thing, right? It says in the Shulchan Aruch, Yom Kippur, if a person has dirt on his body, right, or he's allowed to take water and wash it off. We're not talking about that. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Kashomer, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lozek B'Yisrael, ולפיכך כאילו בא להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר אדוני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.